Anoushka, Shanker, what a absolute pleasure and honor to talk to you. How are you doing today? And a wonderful quote.
Thanks very much. It's good to be here.
So I understand that your new EP, Love Letters, is out. I'm also really pleased to see, you're no stranger to collaborating with Indian mainstream musicians, but Shilpa Rao's on the EP and she's on one track. So before we get into the gig and the concert, just a little bit about the EP, about Love Letters.
Well, Love Letters is a collection of songs featuring women, mainly singers like Shilpa Rao. Also, Alev Lenz is on a few songs. Ibei, the wonderful French-Cuban duo. Ayana Wooder-Johnson, the cellist. And it's a collection of exclusively songs with lyrics and mainly English vocals. And I just wanted to create a collection of songs that was very intimate, very sparse, quite raw, rather than a very kind of produced sound. I wanted it to sound like songs that people feel like I'm almost sitting in the room with them playing, like it feels really close. And I feel like we achieved that, so I'm really happy with it.
And you also have a world-famous cellist on it. A little bit about her, please.
She's amazing. Ayana Wooder-Johnson is an amazing songwriter and cellist singer, and she was actually in my band a few years ago when I was touring Traces of You. She was playing cello and singing on that tour for about a year and a half, so we know each other very well, and her career's really taken off in the few years since then, and it was really nice to come back and work together in a songwriting capacity this time. So she's the one that co-wrote the song that Shilpa Rao features on.
And why do you call it love letters? Is it a series of love letters that you wrote to yourself or somebody? Does it come through in the lyrics? Just why the EP is called that?
I think it's apparent in the lyrics. I mean, these are songs to do with romantic love, but various shades of it. So it's not... What I found interesting was that when you say love letters, we kind of think of that first flush of love where people are like writing to each other and it's all really romantic. And actually these are lyrics that are kind of felt or spoken through the different range of relationships. You know, the longer story, the longer game. But calling that love letters just ties it together, I guess.
Well, you know, writers can be quite a contradiction. Like, for example, one of India's biggest writers is Javed Akhtar, and he testifies to the fact that he's not very romantic in real life. And his wife, the great Shabana Ji, says the same thing, that he's not. As a person in your real life, are you really romantic, or are you a very pragmatic, rational kind of person?
I'm both, actually. My sister always jokes that she and I are both very right brain, left brain people. So I'm really romantic. I'm very artistic in all those cliche ways. But I'm also really like logical and linear and time oriented. So both.
So now let's come to the tour. You're at the Shanmukhanand tomorrow, which is actually a really landmark venue because the other venues in Mumbai came up much later, and this was like the original. Your dad must have great stories of performing at the Shanmukhanand.
Yeah, I mean, right from the beginning of his career, and I have great memories of performing with him there. So it's one of the venues that I remember sort of growing up in, you know, like I've played there with my father, I've played there solo, I've played various albums of mine from Traveller to Traces of You, Land of Gold, now Love Letters. So really different things, which I like because it's known as a very classical venue, but it's actually interesting to sort of switch that up a little bit and bring in different bands and bring in different audiences. So I'm really looking forward to being there again.
Yeah, and you know, my parents used to follow classical music a lot, and they talk about how in the days of yore there used to be circles, you know, there used to be the Santa Cruz Circle and the Chembur Circle and things like that. And I don't know whether it was much before your time, but you know, your dad must have told you about those too. Yeah?
It was a little bit before my time, but very much I heard about that as well. I mean, my dad had huge nostalgia about this city and huge love. So every time we came back, he always was full of stories about, because he really began his career here in a lot of ways. You know, like this is where he really grew as a solo artist. And so, yeah, he had a great deal of love for the city.
So when you're making an EP, you obviously know that you're going to travel, you're going to tour to support that EP. Do you choose the musicians to play on the EP or the album, keeping in mind that you might be traveling with them, or do you get a whole different band or a set of musicians to come and do the live gigs with you?
I've done both, and so it really depends on the situation. There are some albums which are made with a very broad eye, so maybe there are over a dozen to many more than that different artists on the album, you know, different tracks having different guests, different co-writers, different sounds. And then what I do is a really interesting process later of then reinterpreting the album in a live context where I rearrange everything and think in terms of a core band that can represent it. I do love that process. Sometimes it's a little bit more like it's easier to represent the music live because it's already being made in that way. But historically, I've always kind of allowed myself that leniency that I don't want to limit an album to thinking about the live translation. So I try and let the live music be what it is, but let the album be what it is as well. So I do find that process of interpretation really interesting.
So for all of the you who are listening, it's at the Shanmukhanand tomorrow. Tickets are at Insider, and I'm sure they're filling really fast if they're not filled already. So go and get yours right away. So who's on stage with you tomorrow?
So I've got an amazing collection of musicians with me tomorrow. My main collaborator, Alev Lenz, is a German-Turkish singer who co-wrote most of the music and co-produced it with me. She's featuring as a singer-pianist in the show. I've got two other amazing singers. Nikki Wells is this amazing woman she's quite an anomaly. She sings in various Indian classical and Western styles. She's an English woman. And, you may have seen her perform with Nitin Sawhney at different times. And it's quite striking to watch her. Nina Harris is an incredible upright bassist and singer. And so these women are all singing on stage but playing instruments as well. And then we're rounded out with Danny Keane, who plays piano and cello, who's toured with me for many years, and Prasanna Devaraja on Carnatic percussion. And he's been part of most of my bands over the last 20 years.
There have been so many... I beg your pardon. There have been so many collaborations over the sands of time. One interview would be too short to go into all of them. But I'm going to try and stick to just a select few, mostly the Indian ones. And, the fact that Nitin Sawhney, Talvin Singh and Nitin Sawhney, when I was a kid growing up, were huge influences simply because they had, they were using elements of classical music and they were playing clubs and things like that. You've worked with Nitin. Also Karsh Kale, who's another fantastic musician, and the couple of friends of mine, Gaurav and Tapan, medieval pundits. So these Indian artists who are radically different, you can't slot them, you can't say they're classical or they're mainstream, so your experiences of working with them.
Again, you can't slot them, so I can't speak about Kirsch or Gaurav or Tapan or Nitin as if they're one category. They're all really individualistic in their choices of how they incorporate these different elements.
Maybe you can go one by one, a couple of lines on each.
Okay. Well, Kirsch, obviously, we did a whole album together, so it was a very intensive process of writing songs together, where actually what was interesting was the act of it being a collaboration allowed us to do things that people maybe wouldn't have expected. So I don't think people still would realize the extent of how that worked. So, for example, on some of the songs on Breathing Underwater, the more raga compositions and classical melodies are actually by Kirsch, whereas people would have assumed they're from me. Whereas on songs like PD7, which is a really heavy electronica, like a lot of the ideas for the beats and the breakdowns and rhythms were mine, whereas people would assume they were Kirsch's. So we really kind of gave each other the space to stretch. Gaurav and Tapan I've worked with right from the beginning. So Gaurav helped produce my album Rise, which was really my first experience of moving outside of Indian classical music and working with electronica and various other forms of music. So, they're dear friends, and it just comes from a really trusting, loving space. Nitin, I started working with before we were friends, which was a bit unusual. So the first time we met, he had invited me to take part in a show. So we wrote a song together called Charu Kishi Rain, which ended up on his London Understand album. But then from there, we became incredibly close, and he produced my song Traces of You, and he remains one of my best friends to this day.
I'm a massive Sting fan. Every time he's come to India, I've gotten tickets much in advance, gone and been right next to stage, and I can't imagine being in the same room as him and, creating work together. So do you stay in touch with Sting, or was it just that one-off thing?
No, we became friends. He came to my show. He was really supportive. For whatever reason, he and his wife Trudy kind of really took to me when I was younger, and were very supportive. I came to some of my first solo shows, and then he asked me to play on the Book of Life, and then from there, he was someone I really looked up to and had a friendship and relationship with, which was lovely. Yeah.
And George Harrison, God bless his soul, you did some work together. Of course, his friendship with your father is very, very well known. He is known as the gentlest Beatle. Mm-hmm. So your memories of George?
I couldn't go into that shortly. He was like an uncle to me. Very, very dear family friend. And so I had a very deep relationship with him and a lot of love for him.
And in terms of work, George obviously was very, very enthused by Indian music and took to it very beautifully. So the George wearing his work hat.
He came to it from a very deep place. Like he had a very sincere and intense love for Indian culture and Indian music, Indian philosophy. So he'd gone very deeply into that from the time he met my dad. And so, working with him, for example, on my dad's Chants of India album, which was, centered around Vedic chanting, there was a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience and a lot of sincerity on his part and my dad's part that I could really learn from. I was 15 at that time. So getting to work on that and conduct that record was a real learning opportunity. Like to work alongside him was amazing.
Are you able to take both your boys on tour with you, or does school come in the way?
School comes in the way. It's hard. It was easier when I just had one kid who was pre-school age, so I could take him with me everywhere. Once he became more school age, it's harder to take my younger one because my older one feels like he's missing out. So occasionally there are shows on holidays where I try and book things like that where we can go as a family, so at least they have some of that experience. But on the whole, I just try and keep my tours as short as I can.
I know for a fact your dad said you don't necessarily have to be in music, but he'd like it that you'd be in music. I read somewhere. Is that what you've told your children, or are they showing any signs of music?
I mean, they are, but at the same time, I must say I haven't been very active about pulling them towards it either. So they show an interest in music like any child does, like in arts, in dancing, and being creative. It's a very natural inclination, I think, and it's more about opportunity than aptitude, I think. So yes, they seem artistic, but I have no sort of ambitions for them.
So how many cities in the Love Letters tour? For people who miss you in Mumbai, can they go to other cities in India? Are you also taking it abroad like you do with all your other promotional tours?
So usually my albums, I tour very intensively, and I tour and promote them a lot. I made a deliberate decision with Love Letters to make it an EP, specifically so that I wouldn't do big extensive tours with it. I wanted this to just kind of reach people instantly, have the music out. I did a couple of shows in London as part of the release, and now I'm literally only doing Mumbai and Delhi, and that's it. And I might do one or two at the end of the year. So this is kind of it. So if you want to see it, come now.
So I remember you scoring music for this silent film called Shiraz, which I think must have been a beautiful challenge for you. Some people also tell me that scoring BGM is a very lonely process because you spend a lot of time alone in the studio with the engineer or yourself. Did you enjoy that? And if so, are you looking forward to doing more stuff like that?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to doing more. And on the whole, I probably prefer my experience as a solo artist and touring, because you just get to be a bit more open to the journey of the chemistry between artists and musicians, whereas obviously working for film, we have to serve the film, and that's a different kind of beauty, and it's really beautiful, but obviously you have to be bound to that, you have to commit to that. What I'm really interested in though is that I've only ever really scored that silent film. I've done a couple other small projects, but that was the one intensive thing I did, so I've never actually had that more common experience of working with a director and collaborating in that way. So I think taking on a more modern project would be nice.
And your fans of you and your sister Nora asked that after Traces of You, why isn't there more work? I mean, are you guys, is it just been put on the back burner, or do you often talk of it as sisters?
Well, it's neither put on the back burner nor often talked about. I mean, we're sisters, but we're also very different musicians who both have very busy careers doing lots of things. So being sisters doesn't mean we're going to collaborate all the time. We're not a duo, so I think it's more one-off experiences when they feel right. Having said that, it feels right because 2020 is our father's centenary year. So this year we're doing a bunch of celebratory concerts around the world, including in India at the end of the year. And at some of those concerts, my sister will be taking part as well as a special guest. So even though we've done albums where she's featured and we've written together and worked together, we've never actually performed live together. So this year will be the first time that's ever happening, which I'm really looking forward to.
Have you ever thought that if you were to take another career, if you weren't the successful sitar player you were today, what that alternative career would be?
I mean, I can't speak about alternative realities, but in this reality outside of music, I was always drawn to writing more than anything else. Not necessarily fiction, but just writing. I loved writing articles and contributing to books, and yeah, I like the directness of the written word.
As somebody who loves you and follows your career a little bit at least, does the Grammy thing hurt at all? I mean, what are there, 6 nominations? Yeah. My God.
I think the record, and I can't remember who it is, but it's someone pretty famous, is to be nominated 31 times before a win. So I have a long way to go if ever I go anywhere like that. If I ever win or if I'm nominated again, either is an honor. So I think it's all about attitude and perspective. I think I would not like to be the kind of person who focuses on a nomination like a loss. You know, to be chosen among 5 nominations is an honor, and that's cool. And then obviously that kind of puts one in a position where you're then starting to hope to win. So there's a bit of a disappointment when you don't win. I'd be lying if there isn't. But that's not my purpose as an artist, to go and win awards. Like, that's not the point of my existence as a human being either. So no, it doesn't hurt in that sense. You know, there's a momentary, and then that's it. Yeah.
Everybody knows the influence of your father. He's your guru, and everything that goes into that. But your mother is also just such a fine, wonderful lady, and stuff that you picked up from her. Mm-hmm. Do you speak Tamil at all?
Mm-hmm. I do. Yeah.
That's cool. more Bong or more Tamil?
My Tamil accent is better, but I probably speak a little more Bengali. So both an embarrassment, my parents would tell you. My mom's a huge influence, like you say. I mean, she's an incredible woman, but she's also a brilliant artist. She's an amazing businesswoman. She's a strong individual, So in many ways, whether it's in my art or in my career or as a human, I've been hugely influenced by my mother. So yeah, she's played a huge part along the way.
You lived in California, you lived in London, you're a world citizen. But what's the city that you love the most? Just you go to that place and say, wow, it just feels so wonderful.
I mean, I guess the beauty of having a career that's allowed me to travel is that I can experience that in a lot of cities. I don't feel at home in many cities, but there are multiple cities that I love, and the energy of them, you tap into it and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. I mean, at this point, I'd say like London and California, obviously, like I have a feeling of home there, and to an extent it's still in Delhi because I lived there for many years before as well, but there are many cities I love.
That's why you had an album called Traveler.
Yeah, they're all kind of, traveler, home, like there's a whole concept about travel and home and identity, I guess. That's big for a lot of us that live in these kind of multicultural lives.
But you must be happy that things are improving in India on a lot of fronts, in terms of the fact that, you've written an album about the homeless people, you've been very vocal about, sexual exploitation of women. Do you see that change each time you come to India? You're seeing a more self-assured Indian woman?
Well, when we speak about, let's just be clear that when we speak about sexual exploitation, we're not talking about how self-assured an Indian woman is. The woman has nothing to do with it. It's about the people who are perpetrating the violence.
As in, they're speaking more about it, that's what I mean.
Sure, but I think underlying that, I mean, it's about, are we seeing change? Are we seeing change in the attitudes of men towards women? Are we seeing change in policies that help promote safety and promote laws that, help women to come forward? It's much more about the systematic situation around sexual violence than just talking about how women are talking. The environment needs to be positive for women to be able to speak. So yeah, I do see women being stronger and being more vocal, but it's about a lot more than that.
Last couple of questions. Is the food taste more Bengali or South Indian, or are you world citizen as far as your food is concerned?
Oh God.
Are you a foodie at all?
I love food, my God. On the whole, I eat a pretty varied diet. Like I love kind of just home Indian food from the south and north. Actually, not much Bengali, like probably least.
So you do a dal and roti?
I'd be more dal and roti than like machar jhol, But then I kind of just really like good, healthy Mediterranean food. Like I love a lot of grilled vegetables, a lot of olive oil. Like that's probably my more standard daily fare, is just salads and good protein, and I don't know.
This Valentine's, I'm actually saying on my show, love yourself. I mean, it's great to love other people, but you need to love yourself before anything else. So how does Anoushka Shankar pamper herself? How do you love yourself? Some people go to the spa, some people have a good meal. So how do you show yourself a good time? You
know what? I mean, that's a really interesting question in a way, because I used to think about that more in terms of how do you pamper yourself, like you said, like what do you do for those special things? And it's lovely to go to a spa, it's great to get a massage. But actually, I'm more interested now in the kind of daily, simpler acts of self-care. Like, how do you love yourself in a general way? Like, do I exercise? Do I eat well? Do I take rest when I'm tired? Do I tell the truth in a difficult situation with a friend? Do I speak up for someone? All of those things that make me feel good about myself and feel nurtured and loved and like a whole person. That is self-care more than like not doing any of that and getting a massage once in a while, So I think that's more my focus at the moment.
It's a beautiful answer. So final question, what's on your playlist? What's on your phone? And you're not allowed to say Anoushka Shankar, the other stuff.
I love the assumption that I must be on there. I'm listening to a lot of people like Niels Fram, Olafur Arnolds, Joep Beving, Agnes Obel. Yeah, a lot of kind of women composers and songwriters. A lot of neoclassical music featuring piano, Max Richter, Garth Stevenson, stuff like that.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.